Namaste. Hello everyone. Welcome again to the NPTEL course Role of Craft and Technology in Interior Architecture. Today we are going to discuss module number 27, which talks about the craft sector and the key challenges and issues that it faces specifically in India. So we are going to talk about the issues and challenges that this particular sector faces, and we'll also have some discussions on the handicraft sector especially of Gujarat, Rajasthan and Orissa, and then we'll try to understand and see what are the common issues or what are the specific issues that are particular in these regions faced by the artisans in this sector, and of course we'll see references which are beneficial for all of us for further studies. So specifically talking about handicraft sector, because it really contributes to a very large population of artisans and craft persons, and it is one of the most prominent craft sector that India has nurtured. So we'll talk about lot of cases from this sector, and we'll also see certain information related to the building craft and few other discussions we'll have as we go subsequently through the other slides. So the handicraft sector, it enjoys a special significance, like I was mentioning, in our country India, and it is very specifically significant also in terms of country's economy, in terms of employment generation and earnings of foreign exchange through exports. It is the second largest employment sector, and there are almost 23 million craft persons who constitute this huge sector, and it also provides 63% of exports turnover. So it's a very significant sector, and since the number of craft persons is huge and the country itself is huge, there are regional variations, there are diversities, therefore there are a lot of issues and challenges, even if we have a lot of policy making, even if there is also intervention at the level of education and in terms of awareness, still there are a lot of issues and challenges faced because of the huge number associated to it, and of course there are several other reasons that we'll just discuss. So we had this slide in the previous lecture also, but it's important, so I have kept it. So despite its rich heritage of traditional and manufacturing skills, India's share in the international market for craft is under 2%, and especially comparing it with China, that is 30%. Today the craft sector in India is a fragmented and underdefined one. So we came across this word last time, and because of this fragmented nature and also the informality associated with this sector, again there are a lot of issues and challenges that the artisans and the craft persons face, and also the policy makers. With policies, mandates, schemes, roles and actors scattered across 17 government ministries, ranging from the core ministry, that is the Ministry of Textiles, to the Ministry of Women and Child Development. So that itself is also a very challenging part, that the entire craft sector is fragmented and divided under 17 ministries. So sometimes to converge policies and create an ecosystem becomes very challenging. Now there are some more issues that we'll see, and this has been stated by Creative Arts in India, Theatre, Dance and Crafts Industry, and they say raising funds, sponsorship, dearth of infrastructure spaces to perform theatre and dance, and inclination toward other creative arts and related platforms are the major challenges faced by the industry. The government needs to adopt certain measures to improve the current status of the industry, as it is a means of livelihood for a large section of society. So again there is a huge dearth of funding, and scholarships need to be raised, infrastructure needs to be developed, and particularly here it is being talked in terms of the theatre and dance, the performing arts, which are again soul of India's culture, and our performing arts are so famous and there is so much potential, but then because of these issues and challenges there is a serious concern and that needs to be addressed. Then Jaya Jaitley ji, who has been very actively working in the craft sector, she also has done a lot of analysis, and we'll be seeing what are the issues and challenges that have been put forth by her. So apart from vision and political will to develop crafts production as a serious economic proposition, there is also the issue of finances. So in continuation to what we were discussing in the previous slide, again the issue of finances is a major concern. After all, if we talk of building the barely literate and often indebted craftsman into a self-employed producer, entrepreneur, it will need funding structures that are viable and acceptable to banks. So we are looking at this model which gives the power, or it empowers the craft person to transform his being and the associated workspace and the workshop where he works into more like an entrepreneurial enterprise to come up with some economic model of livelihood. It's also very important that to put on stake initially there is some funding, and it's very difficult to procure that. The recent thrust on creating self-help groups and microcredit schemes is bringing the organizational and financial components to suit small businesses and the decentralized sector in rural areas, particularly for women. Unfortunately, though the groups are often well organized, they do not have the production or marketing expertise. Now this is another bottleneck. Even though there are certain schemes in place, even though there is the creation of self-help groups and microcredit schemes are available, but the problem is that marketing, enterprise, those kind of skills and that kind of a special method of work, that is still not very popular amongst the craft persons, and that itself is a sort of a skill or training that needs to be enhanced. Now the basic requirements to realign this sector as an economically viable network of craft industries. So I am talking about economically viable network here, and then we are seeing craft in terms of industries. So to realign this sector as an economically viable network of craft industries would be to provide startup grants. So this is another highlight, which are geared towards setting up the craftsman's workplace as a business apart from providing the already existing subsidies for skill demonstration, temporary sales and design workshops. So there is also a discussion on developing the workspaces of the craft persons. Again I keep going back to DICRC because they do a lot of work in this sector and I have already worked with them. So they recently did this project where they mapped the spatial configuration of the workspace of craft persons of a particular community, and they tried to suggest improvements because it's very important to have a conducive work environment to have a good output. So again that's also a concern, setting up the craftsman's workplace as a business and provide them adequate infrastructure. Despite all the existing skills and drive of craftsmen, there is today hardly a bank that will welcome them and give them a startup loan. So again, there has to be an understanding and the policies have to be made where the banks provide loan to these craft persons and allow them this kind of support. And that is again a key issue and challenge, that these kind of startup loans are still not available to the craft persons, and there is also a very prominent need that this channel is created and they could afford that funding, procure that funding. It is in the area of advertising that artisans or non-profit organizations working for their development face unmatchable competition from the multinational corporate sector. So there is a competition also in place from the multinational corporate sectors, and because the craft persons, they are not equipped in the area of advertising, in the area of publicity, in the area of marketing, they suffer huge losses. So that's again a challenge. This overview slide we saw in the previous lecture, but again to put into perspective what are the broad issues and challenges and the areas of concern that this sector faces, I am just going to reiterate it. So we see here a lot of reasons which have been stated, which are a matter of concern and which are the challenges which this sector faces today. So there is inadequate infrastructure. This is in line with the discussion that we were having already over the previous slides. Sponsorships and raising funds, again we see that. Then there are a lot of regulations that come into picture. There is lack of trained, skilled, willing artists, inability to demonstrate to the sponsors what is your USP or a potential for which you must get sponsorship. So that kind of an ability to present and deal with the sponsors is also important. Procurement efficiency, rising costs, challenges in the movement of artists. Sometimes it becomes very difficult. Like we have a lot of organizations that provide training, which have the training centers, but sometimes what happens that the training centers are situated very far off from the villages where the artisans come from. So it's very interesting if there could be more like the field training centers rather than a centralized training center where all the craft persons and the artisans have to move and come out for the training. So that kind of initiative is a welcome step. Then sometimes permissions take a lot of time, and then there are a lot of taxes which are being imposed. Then availability of credit, that is also it's not available all the time. Pensions, insurance benefits for artists and employees, that also has to be risen. So all these key issues and challenges are really being faced by the craft sector, especially in India. So now talking about the key challenges in the building craft sector, I am again going back to the DICRC model and what are the highlights that they have pointed out. So the lack of defined knowledge transfer from one generation to another, leading to decrease of resources as well as interest amongst younger craft persons. So that's one key challenge and issue. Then in terms of awareness, there is shortage of public awareness of the built heritage sector, and work opportunities causing serious problems related to sustainability and survival amongst craftspeople. So this is another key challenge. Then the percentage of short term assignments in the building sector poses a barrier to training and skills development, causing hindrance upskilling the artisans. So the short term assignments in the building sector, again they pose a lot of barriers. Absence of tangible progression routes and financial rewards. So we are talking about the absence of these two. For those wishing to continue using their practical skills, leading to rapid migration of craftspeople to other sectors. Because there is not enough financial reward, there is not enough employment, there is not enough work, this leads to migration, and also migrating to different sectors of work, migrating from your own craft background and doing some other kinds of jobs. That is another major issue and concern, and it's a challenge in the craft sector, how to prevent these languishing crafts and how to really prevent this migration and have the craft persons work on their original ideas, and then this sector being nurtured the way it was initially in the times of Mahatma Gandhi. So those all concerns are like very paramount and they need serious attention. Now the craft sector contains many paradoxes. Artisanal contribution to the economy and the export market increases every year, and more new craft persons are being created especially women. At the same time, mass-produced goods are steadily replacing utility items of daily use made by craftspeople, destroying the livelihood of many without the capacity to absorb them into industry. A mindset that restricts anything handcrafted to the government emporia, the crafts museum and an occasional craft bazaar will only succeed in the increasing marginalization of crafts and their producers. So what is happening is craft, rather than being looked as a popular activity, is now getting more and more reduced to an elitist activity. And just putting craft on display in some craft emporia and craft bazaars and few stores and showrooms, it will not serve the purpose. So it has to really reach the roots, the ground level, and it has to really empower the craft persons who work on ground in their villages with their indigenous knowledge. So that kind of policy making is required, and this is again a serious challenge that needs to be addressed. So will the idea that craft should be purely decorative and that tourists and the urban elite are its only target customers. The current much used terms exclusive and ethnic are singularly limiting and inappropriate when marketing skills and products with a potential producer base of 23 million. So we are only limiting craft when we just sell craft in the name of ethnicity and exclusivity and something which is exquisite and something which is not really affordable as a day-to-day object for the common masses. So all these concerns, they really are quite important, quite serious and crucial. So when the policy makers, they make policy, and the researchers and academicians like us talk about creating awareness through education and pedagogy and through research work, all these concerns have to be kept at the back of the mind, and accordingly some steps have to be taken. Now another key challenge could be most commercialized craft aims for quick, standardized and low cost replication, and this imitates the factory model. So when we talk about anything quick, standardized and low cost, it is mostly about mass production, about the factory model. The strength of handcraft, artistic vision involved and handmade quality are forgotten. Even when artisans can earn a living by producing contemporary versions, most do not wish their children to be artisans. This is another concern. So the customization is getting lost, and because of the quick results, the factory model is adopted, and sometimes some artisans are doing well off, they get returns, but they don't want their children to continue because of all these issues and challenges that this sector faces. And that is a serious loss, because craft knowledge and skills, they get transferred from one generation to another, and when the next generations stop taking those activities as professional, then there is a serious loss of knowledge base and then the knowledge transfer, and again that's a concern. How to really hold those craft persons and not put them in a situation that they have to migrate and they have to look for other work opportunities, and they see their main occupation, they see their main source of earning, the craft practice, as something which is temporary or secondary. That's what we have to really look into. Now, despite several policies and schemes, the artisans are not able to overcome their weaknesses and hence struggle hard for their existence. Some art forms have slowly lost relevance with the advent of industrialization, and the sector carries the stigma of inferiority and backwardness. This is another problem. Not being able to compete with the sophisticated finished products that are there in the market, and seeing our craft products which are very customized and which are, so to say, unfinished, seeing them as inferior and backward, and that's another issue, and which is to be really overcome by awareness, by celebrating the craft skills, by celebrating the unfinished, the raw, the crude, the original craft products and the practices. So all that is really required. Now this is one case where researchers have discussed the handicraft industry of Gujarat, and they have tried to really put forth a lot of issues and challenges through statistics they have discussed, and the respondents are the craft persons and the artisans themselves, and there are a lot of questions that were asked to them, and that's how the results have come. And I found this study very significant for the lecture that we are having, so that's why we'll discuss this case. So the different kinds of handicraft activities: own business, service with fixed salary, job work, and part-time artisans. So when we are talking about the handicraft sector and in Gujarat, there are also possibilities that all these craft persons and artisans are not perennially and permanently working in that sector, but there are different kinds of forms of these handicraft activities, and this is the kind of percentage that we see, and what is alarming is this number. So more than half of the artisans are part-time artisans. That's a serious issue. So it is noticeable that nearly half of the artisans are part-time artisans who are not currently employed regularly in the field of handicrafts. They are skilled people but not getting regular work. They work in their leisure time to earn supplementary income. Only 19 artisans, which is 47.5% of the total respondents, have adopted their art as main occupation or means of earning, and this number is quite less. Also, they work according to the needs and instructions of their employers, businessmen, middlemen. Generally, they do not have chance to show their designing talents, as they become just workers or laborers, and they do not enjoy the status of being called an artisan or a craft person who puts his or her soul in the piece of art and craft form that they produce. So again, this is very disheartening that a huge number of the craft persons are working as part-time artisans, and they cannot even call the product made by them or the craft design made by them as their own, and the middleman really exploits them. So again, lot of issues and challenges here. Now again, this table talks about reasons to join the handicraft. Of course, lot of people do it because it's a family tradition, and there are other reasons as well which are stated here. So finding it easy, less initial investment, utilization of their free time, government would help them and they could do some activity in this sector. That's another reason why people come to this sector and join it and work in it. And few people, like I said, have no option. They only know this work and they would like to continue with it. And these are the percentages that we see here. And again, if we can see here, this is just the 5% when we talk about government help being at their disposal. This is also very alarming and it needs to really change. So it has been found that majority of the artisans, 65%, they have joined this handicraft activity to utilize free time. Such activity can be helpful to women, therefore, to utilize their leisure time in some creative and productive work which will also enhance their family income. So this sector has a huge potential, especially for women. If they could utilize their time and be involved in the handicraft sector, it will also enhance their family income and give them some support. Only 5% respondents have been inspired to come in this field by the government efforts and help. And thus the reach of government initiatives seems weak and must be focused more. So there are a lot of initiatives that government takes, but sometimes they do not reach to the craft persons, to the artisans, they do not reach the ground level. They just get reduced to papers of policy making and lot of blog writing, but sometimes they do not reach the main beneficiary, and that's again a gap, and that's also a challenge. Another one that we see here, continuing the same research in Gujarat, weaknesses of handicraft artisans. So here again there are some problems, some issues and challenges that have been listed down. Lack of modern managerial skills, less education, scarcity of working capital, financial problems, less information about marketing, lack of information again about the government schemes, policies, facilities. Also the credit facilities especially. Lack of knowledge about the latest designs, current market demands, changing trends. Lot of them don't know how to use advanced machines and equipments and face the competition from the other sectors and the other multinationals and how the market is driven. Lack of organized identity, like we have been talking about it, the craft sector is like very informal and fragmented, and sometimes they really face problems due to a lack of organized identity. No information about exports, and these have all come from the respondents. So again we see here in terms of percentage. And this one, 87.5% have told that they don't have information about government facilities and schemes. So despite various governmental and non-governmental efforts to develop handicraft industry and protect the interest of artisans, the artisans still have to face many problems. 87.5% of respondents do not have proper information about government programs, schemes or credit facilities. Lack of information about governmental aid, credit facilities is at the first place and a major challenge and a key issue. It indicates that government must focus on awareness programs in this regards. Another hindrance is lack of organized identity. So there is no unity in fixing prices, deciding the quality standards, and there is competition among artisans themselves, and this ultimately leads to lower profit margin, inferior quality and price wars. So that's also one key issue. There must be organized identity to protect interest of artisans, ensuring transparency and cooperation in administration. So this is again one suggestion. Further, it is noticeable more than 80% people face problems due to less education, inability to use advanced machines and equipments, and lack of information about exports. Scarcity of working capital or financial problems are another concerns, as comparatively low investment is required for such handicraft business, yet 77.5% respondents face such problems. So the initial cost or the initial investment is quite low, but still lot of artisans and craft persons are not able to do even that. 35% artisans told that they are lacking modern managerial skills, like it was discussed in one of the previous slides also. So this is one key challenge and issue, and which a lot of researchers have highlighted as a common concern. Seeing here the challenges faced by the handicraft artisans. So decreasing demand due to change in the taste and interest of people. So market is changing, the trend is changing, people's taste is changing. Losing its original form, competition with latest machine, problems of quality and durability, and middleman earns huge profit and there is a lot of exploitation of the craft persons and artisans. New generation is not interested in handicrafts, lack of infrastructure, improper implementation of government schemes or lack of awareness about them, and irregularity in employment is one major concern. It's a key issue because there is no sustainable livelihood associated to this sector. A lot of craft persons migrate and they change their jobs. They are looking forward to not continuing their family tradition. And again, the percentage here that we see is quite alarming in terms of many of these aspects. Gain is less as compared to the hard work. 97.5% of respondents say that. Artisans feel that it is a laborious work not having social status, as gain is very less as compared to the time and energy that they invest. There is competition with latest machine made products of large industries, and there is improper implementation of lot of schemes that are suggested by government. Competition from latest machine made products produced on large scale in big industries are cheap and they are identical and fast to be produced. So they are mass produced, they are sold cheaper and they require less time to get manufactured, and therefore the handmade products face lot of competition from these machine made products. Improper implementation of government schemes and programs. Through such programs, though such programs seem attractive at planning and policy level, but they fail to get implemented. That's again one major issue. Now there is also a concern about middlemen, and 87.5% respondents felt that middlemen earn huge profits and not the artisans or the craft persons. Artisans do not possess knowledge about market, selling techniques, advertising, modern means of promotion and publicity. Though they are very efficient artists, they have mastery in production but not in marketing. They have to rely on traders, wholesalers or businessmen who exploit them because they are scattered, unorganized, ignorant and helpless. And this is very challenging. How does one really address to this challenge and make policies which prevent this exploitation, and the end beneficiary, the craft persons, they get their due? The major problem in marketing the arts and crafts made in India are lack of consistency of supplies, quality control, scalability of supplies. So marketing of arts and crafts products is again a concern, and it's very challenging, especially for the craft persons who knows how to make them but not how to market them. Another problem faced by craft persons is that they are bound in their struggle for survival to money lenders, traders or middlemen for credit and raw materials, and they are obliged to sell their products to them at a minimal price. So they are already indebted and they have lent money and they have to really return it to the money lenders, and they have to take care of their family needs and they need money, and they have to really sell their products on a very minimum price. So that is again a concern. 82.5% artisans, they opine that lack of infrastructural facilities hinder the growth of such sector. And the same number of respondents also said that they have to face complaints from the customers about quality and durability of handcrafted products. Demand of their products is decreasing due to change in the taste and interest of people. Market demands innovations and modifications today. So market needs that kind of innovation and modification, and one who does that survives and one who doesn't is really at the suffering end. So when we see a lot of these different researches, they point out these common issues and challenges. Also, like we have been discussing, the new generation is not interested in handicraft due to lack of recognition and monetary value, lot of energy and time being invested, but the gains are very less. So again, that's one key challenge. Also, we discussed like handicrafts are losing their original form due to changes in lifestyle and culture, and utilitarian products have become decorative products only. So some artisans have started using cheap and inferior material, and they are making compromises with quality of products. So that's not a good sign. The change in consumer buying trends and the entry of various new aggressively promoted factory produced commodities into the rural and urban market has meant that craft producers need more support than ever if they are to become viable and competitive. So there is a lot of competition that is being faced, with these factory produced trendy in demand products, and because of that the handmade craft products suffer a lot. So we have been discussing a lot of key issues and challenges. Few of them are listed here, but then it's a very small list, not exhaustive, and we can keep on adding. So globalization and competition from different multinational industries and corporates, low education, lack of skilled labor, lack of financial support, lack of information, government negligence, also the lack of awareness about the government schemes and policies that do not reach at the ground level, lack of interest in youth, changing trends, lack of managerial and digital skills. There are just few. So small scale and handicraft industries of India, they contribute approximately 5% of the total GDP of the nation. But there are major problems which are associated to this industry. Few of them are enlisted here according to another research, and this is done for the handicraft sector in Jaipur, Rajasthan. And the major issues and challenges that they have pointed out are the profits of small scale industry are limited, which are mostly spent on the daily expense of raw material. No extra capital for further development of the industry is left with the owner. The quantity of the handicrafts is less because the cost of production is higher. If goods are to be manufactured on a large scale to meet with the competition of the open market, the traditional touch of the handicrafts is lost. So this is again a very key issue. Continuing, the local laborers and owners of the small scale handicraft industry are exploited by the middlemen and wholesalers, who take most of the profits. In some cases, goods are sold to wholesalers at cost price, which discourages the owners, and they reduce the quality and quantity which is produced. In rural areas, due to lack of infrastructure, availability of raw materials, and non-availability of supply of water, electricity, etc., it becomes difficult to set up a handicraft industry. Again, like what we were discussing, the lack of infrastructure, the lack of upgradation of their working spaces, the basic needs are not given to them, the water, electricity. So this creates a lot of problem in effectively producing the good amount of products and good quality products. Local rural craftsmen and artists learn their skills and production methods from their elders. Therefore, the provision of technical advice and further training is limited. Impact of urbanization, westernization, and introduction of computerized machinery has led to the deterioration in the quality of handicrafts. Now, this is a very major concern and a challenge that the policy makers face, how to really stop this deterioration, how to really stand as the product which is very high in quality, which is exquisite, and which is known for its handmade value. So that again is one key challenge and issue. And this last one that we are going to discuss, it talks about the handicraft sector of Orissa, and it specifically focuses on the women artisans. And this research in the survey, it includes data for both the tribal and the non-tribal women. And we see, like here also, the problems in handicraft sector that have been pointed out. Lack of skill and design development training, and we see the numbers for both the tribal and the non-tribal. Lack of financial assistance from government, again the non-availability of raw materials, lack of the marketing facilities, or lack of the knowledge about the market demand and trends, increasing cost of raw materials, and then all the above. So we see this kind of percentile over here. Then about marketing the products, giving it to the middleman, we see this huge number here. Sell it in the local market, sell in government handicrafts. So all of these numbers that we see here, they are very less compared to this, where the middleman exploits the artisans and the craft persons, and especially here in the case of women artisans. Types of problems while procuring the raw materials: unavailability, poor quality, unreliable supply, high price, and lack of testing facilities. So these are another issues and challenges. Difficulty to market the products, growing competition, low returns, scarcity of raw materials, and competition from the machine made products. All these are challenges. The bottleneck to market the products now. So unorganized market and dispersal of products. So there is no organized identity. Lack of working capital, there is drudgery, there is lack of market intelligence, and there is lack of government support as told by the respondents. Right to spend the earning as per their own choices. So even that we see, how many of them have the right to spend their earnings as per their own choice. Autonomy to sell the products, and this is yes and this is no. So where the autonomy is not given to sell own products, and there is an imposition, who sells the products, how much return do they get, they can't even sell the products made by them as per their own choice. So even those kinds of issues and challenges are present in our context. Decisions being imposed, who sells the products to whom. So there are different people in the family who would impose, and especially husband, they would impose decisions, how the products have to be sold, whether to be sold or not, whom to be sold. So women specifically face all these problems as well. Also take permission to go outside. If a woman is skilled and has the ability and potential, but because of the social fabric and constraints, if she is not allowed to go out, how is she supposed to work? So even that kind of data is available here that we see. Able to manage family without any financial support. So that kind of data is also available, because the livelihood, family income, employment, they really need that kind of a security, and only after that they can think about utilizing this craft sector as their main mode of earning. Until and unless they have this security, they would not get into this business or into this craft sector, into this industry. Now we are talking about craft in terms of industry, and probably this is not so important. The overall change among women artisans, so economically self-reliant, the number is quite good. Socially empowered, able to go outside alone, improvement in lifestyle. So at least they are now economically getting self-reliant. Now somewhere there are contradictions. We saw in the previous slides that most of them are not allowed to spend their earnings as per their choice, or not even allowed to sell the products. But whatever that number be, still when they get to work, they are still economically self-reliant, and they still have some empowerment. Suggestions to improve handicraft sector: more financial support, subsidy in the bank loan, better marketing facility, minimum wage rate fixed by the government, more skill and design development trainings, and all of the above, of course. And taking this research forward, just one more small last discussion. This is about a focus group discussion where 12 women participated from a village in Orissa, and they expressed they are here only for making of handicrafts, and the rest of the things, including marketing and taking profits, are being done by the middlemen. They also expressed that they are not even allowed to sell their products in the market by their own choices. Their husbands and male members of the family They do not allow them to sell their products at their choices. At times they do not even allow them to go out. So the cultural boundaries are also one of the major reasons, you know, and the male domination, the patriarchal society, this again is a problem, and it's not just the lack of awareness towards government policies or government neglect or different reasons that have been, you know, highlighted so far. So due to the patriarchal society, the women are lagging behind to achieve their actual status. This is particularly about the women artisans, that also specifically in Orissa, but in general also this is found in the entire country because of the cultural background and the social fabric that we have. So these kind of problems are also faced. And the major challenge, you know, seeing all the discussions that we had so far, the challenge for the sector is to achieve convergence of policies and schemes to optimize production and marketing, because the sector is so unorganized, so informal and so fragmented, and all the policies which lie under the huge umbrella of, you know, 17 ministries, it's very difficult to consolidate them, converge them and create an ecosystem. So that's a very huge challenge. Despite all that, you know, issues and challenges that we have been discussing, this is again a very major concern, and this has to be really kept in mind while making policies. So now we'll see the policies and reforms in the next lecture, continuing from the challenges and issues that we discussed today. Now we'll see some references, specifically what we discussed today. So there are references related to that: the handicraft sector, the socio-economic aspect of artisans in India, Indian handicrafts growing or depleting. Some more references we see here. So all these reference material, they discuss the policy issues, the challenges, the problems faced. Some more references. Thank you.